Welcome to the Flagrant Foul Fantasy Show. We focus on three major sports, the NFL, the NBA, and the MLB. And we try to give you the best content to win your fantasy leagues. Again, welcome and thank you for listening. We are now available on our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Samsung Podcasts, and Podchaser. Along with that, don't forget to follow us on our Facebook page, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Tumblr. And please subscribe, follow, share, like, comment, or whatever you feel like. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Flagrant Foul Fantasy Show. Today I have my first guest. His name's Frankie. He's an old college friend and one of the hosts of the fAnaticZ, fAnaticZ podcast, fAnaticZ. The A and the Z are capitalized because it's a podcast all about sports in Arizona, college and professional. All right, I'm going to give it away to Frankie for a minute so he can talk about what his podcast is about.
Appreciate that, Braden. Great to see you. Great to be here. As you did mention, our podcast is called the fAnaticZ Podcast. We are all about Arizona sports. We do tend to touch on heavy national subjects, time to time, but mainly heavy in U of A, ASU, Northern Arizona, and Flagstaff. The pro teams, the D-backs, Suns, Cardinals, a little bit of Mercury, and Phoenix Rising Soccer Club down there. So just a little bit of everything. And we just, every Thursday now, we actually used to film on Tuesdays, but scheduling made us move to Thursdays. We do our filming. We got my buddy Dylan and Damien. We put out a really nice show, detailed stats, just, a lot of fun, comedy, debates, arguments, all in fun though. And then we do some pick'ems, and we even got some contests going on right now. So if you guys are in the mood to have a good time and even want to consider what Braden's doing right now and being a guest on our show, just drop by, let us know, and we'll be happy to have your viewership.
Yeah. And so with that, and I'll just add to that, like you said, it is focused on sports in Arizona, but they do talk about other stuff. It's not just, so if you're someone that's like just all about sports, but you're like, well, I don't know anything about Arizona, they do talk about other stuff as well. It's just their main focus is sports in Arizona, and they have got the attention of a couple of the professional teams in Arizona, which is really cool. Can you tell them which teams, just so the listeners know?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it is an honor to be acknowledged by a professional franchise, especially when you're trying to make it in this business. And in the last couple of weeks, we've been fortunate enough to be acknowledged by the Phoenix Suns. The Arizona Cardinals have replied back to me twice on, just one of their posts that I commented on, and they got back with me. The Suns, same with them. And even Dylan had mentioned one of the beat reporters in Phoenix has been tracking our page a little bit. So it's good to see that we're kind of getting more known out there, especially in the Arizona markets.
Well, that's awesome. That's what it's all about. So with sports in Arizona, so I'm just going to hop right into it. We're going to start talking about college football first, because I know this is the first season that your Arizona teams have moved into the Big 12. So which my Jayhawks have been in the Big 12, one of the founding teams. They're just
right.
back at the bottom of the conference. We're back where we're comfortable. We were good for a few years, and now we're back at 1-5 at the moment. We just got off our bye week, and I read some stuff today, and the coach was hoping we'd be healthy coming from the bye week, and it actually sounds like we're less healthy. So could be going to 1-6 next week. We'll see.
That's never a good sign, but the
we had a good few years. And obviously that's when the Big 12 was the Big 12. Now we're the Big 6. We're still called the Big 12, but we have 16 teams now.
Right.
But your ASU, they're near the top. There's only a couple teams higher than them. I think Iowa State and BYU might be the only ones that are higher in the conference than them. And Arizona's in there in the middle too. I honestly thought it was the other way, and obviously you would know more than me. But going into the season, when I was just ranking how I thought the Big 12 would pan out, I didn't have Jayhawks at the bottom for one, so I'll just start there. But I had Arizona higher than ASU. I did not think ASU was gonna, just come out playing like they've been playing. It's been surprising.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's credit to Kenny Dillingham. He's after basically Herm Edwards basically left the program in shambles.
Mm-hmm.
Dillingham has come through, rebuilt the program. He's getting great results. The kids, as you see, want to run to a brick wall for him. And the nation is definitely knowing who Cam Scatterbo is. He's one of the top running backs in the nation right
Mm-hmm.
now. And if he's not on anybody's top running back or Heisman list, it's a shame. He's
Well,
almost
see,
averaging
and
six
that's the
yards a
thing.
carry.
The and I think for him the only thing that's hurting him is that it's the position he plays, because there's just that one guy in Boise State that, I mean, oh my
Oh, dude.
freaking God. He's on I don't even know how to say his last name. Is it Jonty? Is that how you
John,
pronounce
yeah,
it?
he's already got like 1,300 yards.
Yeah, he's on pace. He's on pace to be the first, if he keeps up the pace he's at, and he obviously doesn't get hurt anything. He's on pace to be to beat Barry Sanders' record that has been a record for 30 years now. He is on
Right.
pace to beat Barry Sanders' record, which, I mean,
He's almost hitting 200 yards a game, if not
mhm.
more, in
Well,
some of
yeah,
those
what
games.
was it like? I watched a game a couple weeks ago, and he had 13 carries for 186 yards.
That's
He could have kept
absurd. That's
going.
video game.
No, he could have kept going. They decided to rest him after halftime and let the other guys get some touches, just
Yeah.
so they can keep him fresh, and give the other guys some touches in case they ever need to run or anything, because they were already up 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's not like they had a strong lead, but they were up 2 touchdowns. So they're like, all right, we'll just rest him in the second half. So I'm like,
I just,
yeah, I mean, like he's going nuclear right now. But yeah, like, I think that's the only reason that, like, Cam's not getting that national attention that he is because there's the position he plays. There's one guy that's, like, literally getting all the coverage, that's putting up, like you said, video game numbers. So these other guys that are still putting up extremely amazing numbers aren't necessarily getting that attention because there's a dude that's doing something that we've never seen before.
right. Then, like, with the talent levels in college football, like, it's more talented than it's ever been. Even the teams at the bottom have a
Mhm.
lot of talent. Like, I mean, for example, you just mentioned Kansas is having a rough year,
Oh
but
yeah.
they still have a lot of talent on
No,
that
that's
football
that's
team.
no, and really that's like the thing with the Jayhawks. They have so much talent. Last year, our starting quarterback was hurt. All right, and that's why we had our backup in Bean. I mean, he showed up good enough to where Jason Bean, that he was able to get a free agent contract in the NFL. But, like, this year, it's everybody besides Daniels is hurt. So Daniels doesn't really have a lot. His offensive line is, like, crap right now. So he has no one to, like, block for him. So he's so scatterbugged. He keeps throwing interception after interception because I think he's just afraid to get hit, which, you can't really do that as a quarterback. You have to, like, try to have that composure, and I guess
Right.
he's not. But yeah, there is just so much talent, and like we talked about, and I said we were going to talk about. That's why, like, teams like Alabama, which you're expected to go be the best team and whatever, they're starting not to be. I mean, Vanderbilt, like we said last week, Vanderbilt went out there and put on, and I mean, even this week,
They look
Alabama barely
bad.
won. They barely won. They looked bad, and they barely won against was it South Carolina? I think they played.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, they're not playing up to what Saban was. Saban did not look happy out there when they showed his face a couple times on the screen, but
And
yeah, I
it's
mean, Vanderbilt. I mean, they looked. And shout out to Pitt State, like we talked about, because we have a couple guys in Tim Beck and Jerry Kill that are from Pitt State. One coached at Pitt State, one's an alum of Pitt State. So, yep. Uh, and I mean, yeah, this the talent nationwide. Like, you don't know who's going to win game to game. I mean, I honestly went in, and I say it was a close game this weekend with Oregon and Ohio State. I thought Ohio State was going to win, and that game was so back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then Oregon ended up taking it. The only team I could say in the nation at the moment that, and it's not Georgia. I mean, the only team I could say in that at the moment that it doesn't matter who they're playing, that I'm gonna, I would put my money on at the moment, is Texas, and that's because they have Quinn, who's playing amazing when he does play, and then and they got Manning right behind him, who apparently is the best Manning person in the entire family at football.
See, and I've always joked it's just like nothing scarier than a Manning that has legs.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he looks like a Manning the way he throws, but he runs
Like
like
Michael Vick.
no. I was about to say, who was it? Who was it? Somebody last night commented, and they called and Joe Burrow when he was running for that 57-yard touchdown. I don't know if you watched the game, but they're like, he looks like Vanilla Vic out there. Manning looks like Vanilla Vic. He looks like Vanilla Vic out there in Texas running that ball. Or I guess since he's wearing
Oh
orange,
my God.
I guess since he's wearing orange, I guess it's Creamsicle Vic. He looks like Creamsicle Vic out there running.
And
Um,
that's funny because back in the day at Arizona, there used to be, I don't know if you'd ever watch Arizona games, but, we had a guy named BJ Dinker. Dude could fly and his nickname was Vanilla Vic.
no, no, nice. Well, that's how Vic knows he's that how that's how I mean Vic obviously we know the whole dog fighting stuff with Vic and that kind of tarnished part of his legacy but for there will always be comparisons to Vic because he was the first of his kind I feel like
Oh yeah, he was
now
like, he's still one of the most athletic guys to
yeah
ever play in the
yeah
NFL.
now you obviously you had the RG3s after and now you have the Lamar Jacksons and the Jaden Daniels and whatnot and the Jalen Hurts even though Hurts isn't really a big fast runner he's more of just a ground and pound runner. I mean, the dude lifts
Yeah.
he squats like I think 600 pounds or something crazy like that for a quarterback. That's crazy. He's competing with Saquon on squatting. I mean, if you're competing with Saquon on squatting, I mean, you're a big ass quarterback.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, with that, I mean, like Arizona, I thought they're doing really good. A couple weeks ago, I had them upsetting KU, and obviously they did upset KU, and then I did not. I mean, you guys went 1-1. Arizona teams went 1-1 against Utah teams this weekend with BYU beating Arizona. But yeah, like I said, I did not have Arizona State doing that to Utah.
No.
I had Utah. I had a parlay going. I had a parlay going. I had Utah winning it. I would have gotten like $400 on the parlay. Which I didn't bet a ton, but it was like a 10-team parlay. I had 9 of the games picked right. Didn't matter because the 9 games happened were after the first game. The first game was the Utah game against Arizona State, and I already lost my parlay in the first game. So I went back later and looked, and I won the 9 other games. So
That's insane.
Arizona State, I'm happy for them. Not happy for my bank account a little bit, but I'm happy for them.
Right. But yeah, and like you mentioned with the U of A, it's just like at the beginning of the year, expectations were super high because last year they went 10-2, beat Oklahoma.
How do you
And
say
they have essentially the same guys coming back. It's just, I don't know if it's a different philosophy, a scheme that, the quarterback and guys are adjusting to. Defensively, I think we're fine, but offensively, like Fafita's already turned the ball, like thrown 9 picks this year. He didn't even have that last year.
Is it for Arizona? Isn't they got a new coach though, right? Didn't their coach leave for Washington?
Brennan from San Jose State.
Yeah, because I knew that the Arizona coach he left for Washington because Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama, so everybody's just moving. That's the only difference. Everybody else is the same, and it's almost like, I mean, it's kind of like when you think of like college ball. Sometimes when you have them same players and the same, and obviously with NFL, with college football, with just football in general, you have so many more players, so it's harder to reproduce that. But another year in that same system, you get more used to the guys around you, you get more used to the system, everything like that. So,
Right.
How do you say? I don't even try to say his name because I butcher it. The wide receiver for Arizona. How do you say his name? You would know.
Terrell McMillan.
Yeah, so I knew it was McMillan, but I didn't know how to say his first name. I was like, I'm not even going to say his first name.
What's absolutely absurd is just like you have Travis Hunter in the same conference, and I think McMillan, like if you're just comparing receivers, I think he outdoes Travis Hunter.
Well, see, yeah, the only thing I think that has Travis Hunter just that step ahead when it looks like the draft next year is the dual purpose. But the thing is, like when he gets to that NFL, he's really going to have to pick one. You can try to do that dual purpose. You can try to do it all you want, but like you can be out there that many snaps in college, and Deion's going to keep pushing him to do that because Deion wants what Deion wants, but he's not going to be able to do that in the NFL. You cannot play both sides of the ball that, or at least that often. Like the Patriots have done it with a few people where they'll have like one of their cornerbacks is also like their one of the backup wide receivers right now. So I mean, it's possible, but like he's not going to be able to be a starting corner and a starting wide receiver in the NFL. He's going to have to pick something.
Right.
So, I think
All right.
I think he has a better chance just because of the amount of talent that there is at wide receiver in college football right now. I mean, he has a better chance of making his name staying at corner like he was when he started. Because I mean, there is so many big name wide receivers in college football right now. There's so many.
The talent level, like I mentioned, is absurd.
I'm trying to think.
And then we have basketball right around the corner too.
Oh yeah, well that's why like you talked about you were possibly gonna wear a Pitt State shirt. Well, I was like, I don't know what I'll wear. I'll wear a basketball shirt, and so I don't have any NBA. I have an NBA shirt, but it's a Bulls shirt. But I was like, it's dirty, so I won't wear that. So I decided to wear what I consider one of the best basketball teams in history. You know, they came back from probably one of the biggest deficits in all of basketball, and it's the Space Jam boys. You know.
Yes.
They came back and beat the Monstars, probably one of the biggest comebacks in basketball history, with the help of the real king, Air Jordan, not the new king, LeBron James, who at this point I feel like he's more the coach of his own team, and he'll fire whoever he doesn't like. I think since he's been with the Lakers, he's went through like 4 or 5 coaches at this point.
It's absurd.
Yeah. I think at this point talking about the Lakers, they're picked to be, like, in the preseason stuff I've seen, they're picked to be the 8th seed in the West. And I'm like, thinking of like the prestige that's supposed to be around the Los Angeles Lakers to be picked as the 8th seed when you have LeBron James and his son, who's supposed to be the second coming of the James name, which,
oh my gosh.
he showed up good in preseason, but I mean, I still don't, I honestly think that out of the James sons, that the next one's the better one. Have you seen, I'm trying to remember his name. So obviously that's Bronny, who's with them now. I'm trying to remember the next one. He's got the big old Amari Stoudemire, like, goggles. But dude, he's a big boy. He can dunk, he can play point guard, shooting guard, small forward, whatever you need him. So he's probably gonna be the one that I see out of the James boys that's gonna, take over his dad's mantle. But
it's just like, unfortunately, you always have that, when your dad is such a mogul and legend in the sport, you just have all that pressure on you. And even Michael Jordan's kids never hit anywhere close to what he was.
Oh, no. And then, like, within I know they're expected to finish 8th in the West. The Suns are obviously going to be projected to be very high up there, just with the squad that they have going. Obviously it didn't work out for them last year, but they'll be in it again. I mean, you got KD, you got Beal, you got Booker, which out of the 3 of them, obviously, we all know who KD is, but out of the 3 of them, the one I'd want on my team is the one that started that team there, and that's Booker. But I mean, that Western Conference compared to the Eastern Conference, it is stacked game in and game out. The East, you kind of have, basic. I think you really only have like the 3 teams that I can think of, and that's the Celtics, the Knicks, who've been good for a couple of years, and they got the Nova boys back now. Besides DiVincenzo, he was pissed yesterday. He let them know, like, he was so pissed at them for them from getting rid of him. I guess he did not want to leave.
I mean, he wanted to be with him.
He wanted to be with his boys. I mean, he wanted to be with his college friends. So
you get the band back together, you basically advertise for it, then you ship him off.
And so, you got the Knicks, you got the Celtics, and besides that, you probably have
I feel like Indy's
Cavaliers.
Close.
Indy's, the Pacers and the Cavaliers are both kind of close, but it's really just, I think, down to those 2 teams. It's going to be one of those 2 teams that take it. It's going to be the Celtics, who've been there, year in and year out at this point, and it's going to be the Knicks, just because they have that new juice around them. The Heat's talking about how they got Butler back and healthy and all this other stuff, but I think their time has came and it's gone at this point.
It's going to be interesting to see how Paul George fits in with
Oh,
Philadelphia.
I forgot about the 76ers, which I mean, from what I've seen, he's been playing like lights out. Now they have Joel, I mean, obviously KU alum. He only played there for one season, but we'll take him. You get a big name
Right.
player like that. Well, we always get KU fans always get pissed. Not myself, but a lot of KU fans always get pissed. They're like, we're not like them Kentucky teams where you just get the one and done. They go to college in the NBA. Well, I mean, MB did it, and he's our biggest name player.
Right.
But yeah, they have a real chance of winning it too. But I really think that Western Conference, I mean, it's just stacked. You got the Thunder, who are young and are going to do amazing. I think the Spurs will be better this year, with Chris Paul, lobbing it up to Wemby, being the new Blake Griffin in that Spurs offense or team, and then Minnesota, I think will look good, even though Karl Anthony Towns is now on the Knicks. That's another person on the Knicks. Surprisingly, one of the worst teams I think it's going to be this year is, well, actually, no, I guess they're in the East. They're in the East. One of the worst teams I was going to say probably going to be this year, but they'll still probably do good in the East is the Bucks. I always think the Bucks are in the West, but they're not. They're in the East. But oh yeah, those West teams. I mean, it's going to be a run through to see who makes it and who takes it. Because those Warriors are going to be the Warriors, but they're getting older. I don't know. Who do you see? How do you kind of see the West panning out? Obviously, I know you're going to have your Suns up there at the top, which I mean, I have them near the top too. But how do you see it panning out?
I mean, until the Suns can prove that they're not going to get swept by anybody, I feel like it's fair to fit them in like the 4 to 5 range right now. But what is different about last year is obviously I think we have a much better coach. Budenholzer knows how to win a championship. He beat us a couple years ago after they were down 2-0. He knows how to make adjustments. He knows how to stretch the most out of what he has. And I think another huge difference is we have Tyus Jones now. We have a true point guard who's going to take the pressure off of Booker and Beal and KD just to be themselves. They don't have to worry about switching to be, point guard, take over, play responsibilities. They can just be themselves, get to where they need to be. Tyus Jones runs. And honestly, bench-wise, I think we're, even deeper than last year, too. We got better.
So, with that, then, who do you see as the biggest competition, like, or roadblock for the Suns going into this season? So, which West team are you most worried about?
For me, I mean, obviously, our road still runs through Minnesota because, in my opinion, they got rid of Towns, but I think getting Randall and DiVincenzo honestly makes them better and more athletic. So in my opinion, I think Minnesota's a little more dangerous. And then the other team I'm thinking about in the West is the Nuggets, who just added Russell Westbrook.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the Nuggets. The Nuggets always, I mean, for the last 2 years, they've just seemed like they've been there. I always think of, when I think of the Nuggets, I think of the 2014, when they always show the 2014 draft, and they always show that when the Joker, when Jokic was drafted, that he was drafted during, they didn't even show a picture of him, he was drafted during a Taco Bell, quesarito or something commercial. And so I always think of that. I mean, he was a no-name, and then now he's like one of the biggest in basketball. So the Nuggets, I mean, they're just going to be there. They have a great team there. I do see, like I said, you said the Timberwolves. I mean, with Karl Anthony Towns, I think the biggest thing with them shipping him out was to make the team better, but mostly was that they wanted people to know that is Anthony Edwards' team.
100%.
Like that is his team. So I think that was a big thing, is they see him as the centerpiece of that team. Which, I mean, he is their star player. Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, he's been amazing for years, but he's, I think, more on the decline of his career at this point. And I don't think Edwards has. I mean, I think he's just now starting to enter his prime.
I feel like it was one of those trades that benefited everybody.
Yeah. Most of the time it's like, oh, we got to ship this player so we can get rid of their cap hit or something. Kind of like the Devontae Adams trade that they're trying to do in the NFL right now. Like, But like, it's one of those trades where, I mean, I guess we thought it benefited everybody. It benefited everybody uh, besides the Nova boys. Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think those teams are definitely teams that they're gonna have to. They're teams that they're gonna have to show that they can beat multiple times this season, so that when they go into the 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 NBA playoffs next season, that there is they have that confidence within the team and the bench and everything, so that the Suns can have another chance to try to make it to the finals like they did a few years ago.
right. And then another team I think could honestly move up the ladder pretty quick is Memphis. They're getting Ja back. They got Zach Edey. And honestly, they still have a bunch of talented guys. It's just like, Ja Morant runs the show. Without them, they're a whole different team. So I think Memphis is going to be a lot better. And honestly, I think with Ja, they can easily be in that 6, to 8 range.
Hmm. I hadn't even really thought about them. I kind of always forget about Memphis. Like I know they have Ja, but like with just the stuff he's had going on with him the last few years, I always forget that they have other talent on the team besides him. But it's
Right.
just they're always only talk about him, whether it's it used to be the good stuff, and now it's all about bad stuff all the time. He's a great player, but oh man, his PR, he's got to make some better PR decisions. Because that's all you hear about anymore with Memphis is just the PR surrounding John Morant.
Right.
Um, but yeah, with that, do we want to move into some postseason baseball? Talk about our D-backs a little bit and the Giants a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. As sad as it is.
I mean, it was a great season. I didn't see. I mean, I thought the D-backs would have been back the way they were playing. I didn't think the Giants were gonna do as good as we did. It was supposed to be a rebuilding year for us, and I mean, and then we were like 2.5 games out. And then the Giants, they just re-signed Matt Chapman to like a 5-6 year contract. So he's talking about like wanting to make the Giants organization like his home. So hopefully he'll be that new centerpiece that we've been missing since Buster Posey. Which obviously now we got Buster Posey as our president of operations for the San Francisco Giants. So that's good.
Right.
But
And
yeah,
that's a huge guy to have in there, especially,
three
he's been at
three
that level and he's been part of the championship teams.
Yeah, he was his rookie year. He was the catcher for the Giants when they won. When Tim Lincecum was the freak was their starting pitcher, like their best pitcher, and then the next two times they won, they had Mad Bum. I mean, we've had some great pitchers. We got lucky. We had Mad Bum Garner, and then I mean he was the catcher though, so like he's seen what a winning team looks like, and I'm just happy to get him back in the building and for him to make the changes that he needs necessary, because the guy we had before, like he was all right, but he had more of the operational like business side of it, but he had never played professional baseball himself. So like he didn't know what it was like to be in the clubhouse, any of that stuff. So,
Right.
but yeah, so with the D-backs, like I expected them to be back, and obviously they were just that game short because the Mets and the Braves each split that series that last night.
See, and the biggest thing with that is just like, I'm disappointed, but at the same time, we had that 2 week window at the end of the season where we controlled our own destiny. If we don't blow that 8-0 lead to Colorado, we're in the playoffs. We
Hmm.
didn't take care of our own business. I mean, we still finished with a winning record, which is very good because there's only been a couple times in franchise history where we've had multiple winning seasons, let alone playoff seasons in a row. So
Hmm.
it's progress. We need to overhaul the pitching outside of Gallen and Kelly, because we had the number one offense in all of baseball in terms of scoring runs, but we also had the worst or the fourth worst pitching staff in terms of ERA in all of
Hmm.
baseball, even behind the White Sox.
So trying to think, I might lost my train of thought. With all that, then, is there any key, I guess, like free agents that are coming up, or anybody in the farm that this next season that the D-backs are wanting to bring up. So is there anybody from from the minor league teams are wanting to bring up, or do you know any free agents that they're possibly wanting to look at going into this next season?
It all just depends on how deep our owner wants to go into his pocketbooks because
Mm.
he's been notoriously cheap. And then
Well,
last
not
year
well.
he make
See, that's the thing. Like, just like talking about like it's always harder for those smaller. It's not like the Giants are a a smaller team. Like I'm a Royals fan too, being from Kansas City. So like we're in a smaller, area. So they have less money because it's a smaller team. Because I don't know a lot of fans. So you and I probably know, but a lot of fans don't know with baseball that like it's not like the NFL where you have your certain cap, and it's more
right.
of you spend the money you want, you spend the money you got, and you can the sky's kind of the limit. It kind of bases off your geographical area of what kind of money you have. That's why for those who don't know, the Yankees are always going to be great. The Dodgers are always going to be great because you got LA, you got New York. I mean, even the Mets, like they're hit or miss, but that's more of just ownership. But they have money too. So
Yeah.
like these teams that are in other areas like Arizona, or like even just talking about why Oakland's having to move, like I think that's part of the reason they're possibly wanting to move to Vegas is so that they can get some more money going into their pockets. But it's just harder. It's harder to get those bigger name people. We're never the D-backs and the Giants. We're in the same. We're playing the Dodgers. Every few weeks. We're never gonna have the talent the Dodgers do unless we draft it ourselves and we keep it within our in our locker rooms. So um, I think for my teams like that I look at like the Royals who did good this postseason. I didn't see them making it back. They actually had the highest um, increase in like wins from one season to the next. They had 30, I think it was 33 win difference from last season to this season. Which I mean
That's
it's
incredible.
but yeah, these smaller foreign teams like you don't these smaller teams you don't see those giant gaps of those giant jumps most of the time. They're usually hit or miss. And so like with the D-backs, yeah, like you're saying, they're definitely it's gonna have to be if the owner wants to reach into his pocket or not. Because if not, then it's all based off the farm.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, we had last year. You saw that he did, gave Jordan Montgomery a 1 year, $25 million deal. Gave Erod that deal. Then, of course, right into spring training, Erod goes out for a big portion of the season, and Jordan Montgomery he was just a beach ball pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see if we try to do something with those guys. I don't know if Jordan Montgomery is going to opt in, especially after hearing the owner's comments about him.
Oh, what'd he say?
He basically implied that spending the money on Jordan Montgomery, like, came out and said it was a terrible decision,
Mm.
and he has a player option.
We'll move on into start talking about the week 6 of what we just saw in the NFL. So, what were some of your reactions from like the week 6 slate? So looking at the teams, players, what stood out to you? Good reasons, bad reasons. I mean, obviously, we all kind of saw, and you guys commented on your social media what we saw from the Dallas Cowboys. So I can already, imagine what you're going to say. I know what I would say too. My father-in-law is a huge diehard Cowboys fan, and I haven't talked to him yet, but I can only imagine what he's feeling like right now. But yeah, so
Yeah.
what are those like teams or players that kind of stood out to you for a good or bad reason from yesterday's and Thursday's slate of games?
I mean, honestly, I'm like you mentioned, the biggest one that stands out is how are you, Dallas, and getting blown out 47-9 in your own stadium when expectations are high and you just paid two of your biggest players?
Mm-hmm. Which then I don't think any of that was really on CD. CD when the ball was thrown to him, CD was getting like he was doing stuff, but like
Nobody else
Dak, I
is there
mean,
to step up
yeah,
outside of CD.
well, they have Ferguson, but they only threw the ball to the guy 3 times in the entire game. I'm like, what are we doing? Well, he had 4 catches, I guess. He had 4 catches in the entire game, and I'm like, besides him, they don't have anybody. And I mean, they've already kind of said, hey, we're not going to go after Devontae Adams. We're just not going to do it. So I'm like, you got to have somebody else on your team besides one guy, because all the teams have to do is kind of try to cover him, and then you're not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
defense has, I mean, the Lions have one of the better rush defenses, so you know Dowdle wasn't going to be able to do much. Zeke wasn't going to be able to do much. So I mean, they only were able to throw the ball, and I mean, it literally looked like Dak shit the bed. He shit the bed in front of Jerry. He made a huge embarrassment.
On his
If
birthday.
they yeah on his birthday, if they keep playing the way they are, obviously they're not going to get rid of Dak because well they just paid Dak. So I mean
McCarthy will be gone.
McCarthy's days, his days are numbered. He's one of the coaches that I see in the next coming weeks if things don't change, and I'll talk more about him a little bit later. But he won't last. Like him and Peterson are at the top of my list. Him and Doug Peterson are at the top of my list of like I could see these dudes getting fired before week 10.
100%.
That was very embarrassing. Like it was. I mean, honestly, if the Jags don't win next week in their second
He's
London
probably
game, obviously
fired.
they just played the Bears in London. They're playing next week in London. If they don't win that week, I could see him getting fired in England. He won't even he won't make it back to America as a Jaguar. So
See, and the thing that's wild is that that team has so much talent, and he's won in Philadelphia. I don't know
oh
if
yeah,
it
that's
was
what I'm saying.
more about
That's
it.
what I'm saying. Like with the Cowboys, like I kind of feel bad because obviously they have Dak. And Dak did crap. I mean, he did awful. And they have CD, but other than that, they don't have much. And like, honestly, part of that's on Jerry. Like a lot of that's on Jerry. But the Jags, they have talent. I mean, I have said it since before the NFL season started when I started doing my fantasy football research. But I've been very high, and I got him in most of my leagues. Brian Thomas Jr. He reminds me a lot of like DK Metcalf when DK Metcalf went into the league. The dude can
For
run. I mean,
sure.
he's got wheels on him. He's a massive dude. I mean, like he's like I think they said he's like 4 to 5% um fat. Like he's 250 pounds of straight up muscle, and the dude can
That's
run, and
insane.
he's like 6'4", something like 6'5". He's tall. He's massive. He's a big dude. Um, and I mean, like they have him. Kirk's still doing good. Travis Etienne's kind of been beat up, but also hit or miss. But Tank Bigsby's been picking it up. Trevor Lawrence has not looked what we thought he was going to be going into this league. So
No.
really, I think all these losses, a majority of these losses, now obviously the defense hasn't helped, but a majority of these losses on the offensive side has been due to Trevor Lawrence and then the coaching from Doug Peterson. It just has not been good.
No, because it's like, how do you have somebody like even Kirk and Greg Davis are talented. How do you not move the ball well with three capable wide receivers and two capable running backs
Mm-hmm.
and
Which I
get
think
blown out by Chicago?
well, yeah, which I think this is the first week I saw from them that they actually utilized Gabe Davis. Now, he was the number 2 for the Bills, and now he's the number 3 on the Jags. This is the first week they've utilized him. He had 2 touchdowns. He had more than 40 yards, or I think he's had one other. Besides this game, he had 40 yards in one other game this season. Other than that, they had Evan Ingram back, so they've got a top tight end at the position, and Evan Ingram,
100%.
who's yeah, and they just can't win. I mean, their defense is not playing good. I mean, Trevor's making costly interceptions. It's just it's not going their way, and I mean I don't see him making it too much further. So besides that, the Lions. I mean, besides Aiden Hutchinson going down, I mean that looked awful. But the Lions are doing amazing. The NFC, really the NFC North as a whole. I mean, they all look like they're on the up and up. Caleb Williams finally looks like he is getting into the. And he's taking a little longer than Jane Daniels did, but he finally looks like he's kind of getting into things, getting a feel for the things. He's making connections with his receivers. He's not, turning over the ball or throwing interceptions anymore. He's finally looking like that number 1 overall pick that the Bears wanted. And so, like, I think honestly, looking at it, the NFC, if I was to say right now, the NFC North is probably the best division in football at the moment.
Oh, 100%. 'Cause, I mean, you have every single team that's either 4-2 or better.
Yeah, the worst team in their division at the moment is the Packers, which a lot of people, a lot of NFL analysts, a lot of ESPN analysts, stuff like that, they picked the Packers to win that division. They picked the Packers to, win the division over the Lions. The Lions were they were saying the Lions were gonna have a slump year this year, and the Packers were gonna win the division. It looks like the Packers are the worst team in that division, and Jordan Love's still slinging the ball. Xavier McKinney is on his way to possibly be Defensive Player of the Year. So I can't really, I can't think of one team in that division that I couldn't see possibly, if the Vikings were to somehow go on a losing streak or another team, I could see any one of those teams taking that division. And then
100%. Like there's so much, like all four teams, there's so much talent. And the sad thing is, at least one or two of those teams, even if they keep going at their rate, is going to have a good record and completely miss the playoffs.
yeah, I mean yeah, I mean unless some freak thing happens to where one obviously is like the third or fourth seed, and then the others is 5, 6, and 7. They're not going to make it. Which I mean that would be very rare for all four teams to make the playoffs. But I mean it's possible now with there being 7 teams instead of 6 teams making the playoffs. Um,
Right.
but I mean I don't see it happening. If I were to choose just based off like where we're at the moment, the best team I would say in each conference, what would you say is the and we'll go through them, and obviously you can tell me what you think about the NFC West where the Cards are at, but what would you say is the best team right now in the we'll just start with the North because we were talking about the NFC North.
I would have to say, I mean, even with the injury to Aiden Hutchinson, and then obviously you do have Minnesota that is still undefeated. Sam Darnold's been playing good football, but I honestly, my favorite is still going to be the Lions. I have a feeling with Hutch going down, they're probably going to pursue a trade. Maybe you see somebody like Max Crosby coming over, which would be absolutely insane.
Which Crosby did talk
But
about him and Devontae apparently, which I don't know if he was joking. It didn't seem like he was in what I watched, but it sounded like that Crosby was saying if Devontae leaves, I want to leave. So like I think he's
right,
finally getting sick of the sinking ship. Which I don't know if you watched that Hutch injury. Oh my god,
it was
it was
brutal.
rough. My daughter loves Sesame Street. Like they do the letter of the day. Like his leg looked like the letter S. It looked like Aiden Hutchinson was telling me the
Oh,
letter of the day is the letter S. Like your leg is not
that.
supposed to wrap around somebody else's leg like that. It was rough. Um, but no,
But yeah,
yeah,
no,
I definitely out
I
of the
think they just have
teams,
the best offense in the
yeah, they have the best
division.
offense. Their defense is honestly, which I guess the Vikings have a really good defense too. I think that's the thing with the Vikings is they've been able to, with Brian Floor, they've been able to stop the run. Their secondary is still iffy on the pass, but they've still been able to win games. But I just think when push comes to show that the kneecap biting Motor City Dan Campbell's gonna push his team through, and Detroit's gonna take that division like they did last year.
Well, and one of the big differences on their defense is like the first couple of weeks, you saw the rookies like Terry and Arnold getting picked on,
Mm-hmm.
penalties, coming out like every other.
Yeah,
But the
it
past
takes that
couple weeks,
time
they've
to
cleaned it up, and Terry
yeah
Arnold's
it
looked like
take
a good.
it's it always takes a few weeks for those rookies, especially on rookies on defense, because obviously offense you know what you're gonna do, but defense is reactive, offense is so that's the thing. It always takes a little bit for those players to kind of figure things out. But yeah, they've looked great. Um, I know who I would pick if it was going to be the NFC East. I'm gonna go with the Commanders because Jaden Daniels. I mean, he has looked out of this world to start this year. He's looked like this year's C.J. Stroud. Um, but I mean, I don't know. Is that who you would go with, or would you be going with a different team?
I mean, it's wild to say, but yeah, the Washington, like if you consider the whole football team, they are the best team in their division. Cliff Kingsbury is actually comfortable being a coordinator again. He has
Well,
no
that's the thing.
business
It's like
being
I
a head
thought
coach, but he's a
he
great coordinator.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's a great offensive mind. I think a lot of when they go into it, a lot of coordinators, defensive or offensive, it's like I don't think they quite understand, and obviously we wouldn't either. I'm just kind of stating what's running through my mind, but you're not just coordinating anymore. You're having to do meetings. You're having to work with the GM. You're having to do all this extra stuff. You have to do PR, all this other stuff that you didn't have to
Oh
do as
yeah.
just a coordinator. Now he's just focusing on the offensive side of the ball. He's focusing on what he did with Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, what he did with Kyler early on in Arizona, and I mean he Daniels is the new Murray for him. McLaurin's the new D Hop for him, or Fitzgerald, whichever you want to say, and he is just showing up right now. I've never seen McLaurin look this good in an offense since he left Ohio State. I've been wanting him to get a real quarterback. I mean, this is the first time I think, and I think a lot of it, like Daniels is good and all, but I think a lot of it goes to Cliff Kingsbury, and he doesn't get all the credit he deserves. Like I know he got a game ball when they beat the Cards a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
but I mean, hey, when they put the foot on the gas like they did, I guess you deserve the game ball going against your old team that you're technically the old team's still paying you. So
Right. But yeah, no, like as you mentioned, McLaurin looks good. They got Robinson. They got Eckler.
mm-hmm.
Jaden Daniels looks super comfortable. A lot more, he's easily by far the offensive rookie of the year.
And
But yeah,
I was so iffy on them going into this year. I was like, right before the season started, let's trade away our first round pick from 2 years ago. Let's trade away Jahan Dotson, who I thought was like a really good rookie. His rookie season, he was hurt, he was banged up and hurt his second season. But I was like, why are we trading away our first round pick? I thought they were going to suck, and I was like, well, apparently it was a good idea because Jahan Dotson is now the third receiver on the Eagles, and I mean, he's showed up here and there, but honestly, it's like you talked about, it's a win-win for both teams because apparently the Commanders didn't need him. Like,
yeah, he's like been MIA for most of
mm-hmm.
those games, even when Brown and Smith had been out.
Yeah, like I think he had one touchdown, but it wasn't like he had a lot of receptions or a lot of yardage.
Like the Eagles' offense entirely runs through Saquon, and they're not going to go very far if they're that one-dimensional.
No. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's good. It's good they got Brown back and they got Smith back because yesterday they did look a lot different. I would say they looked the most comfortable they have in weeks. They did play the Browns defense, which the Browns defense is, the better of the two on that team. But I wouldn't say the Browns defense is amazing. It's just better than the Browns offense.
Right.
But no, yeah, they definitely looked really, really good yesterday. I say a lot better. They didn't look as one dimensional, but when you're only running the ball, I mean, they're just taking the script that the Giants had, and we saw how the Giants did with Saquon. I mean, they ran the ball so much with him, he ended up getting hurt. Then he'd be out for games, and then they'd blame the losing season on Saquon when it was never Saquon's fault.
It was management.
It was management. Yeah, it was management. It was
Of
coaching.
Saquon.
I love Saquon too. I tried to draft him in the first round this year, and the guy before me, I'm wondering if maybe he listened to one of my episodes or something because I was going through people I was high on, and that's that's the one bad thing about talking about fantasy football and fantasy sports is that when it comes to draft time, they know who to snipe when you're
Right.
when you're the one in the friend group that does fantasy sports podcasting and stuff like that. But I was really high on Saquon going into the year, so he took him one before me, and then I played him week one. And Saquon went off for 3 touchdowns, so I was a little butthurt.
I tell you what, I feel bad for anybody who took CMC first overall.
I actually traded for him about a week ago, because I traded for him and Jordan Mason. I traded Jonathan Taylor and I got CMC and Jordan Mason because Jordan Mason. I mean, even if he was playing better than Jonathan Taylor, which now he's dealing with a sprained shoulder, but I mean CMC is supposed to be back by week 10, and if he can just be even half of what he used to be, I mean, he's putting up 30, 40 points. If he can put up 20 points, I'm fine with that. He's putting up 30 to 40 points for the 49ers last season. Give me 15 to 20 points, I'm fine. Because I'm really good on receivers, and so my running backs in that league are James Conner, who he doesn't ever get the credit he deserves. I mean, obviously yesterday was a rough day, but he doesn't always get the credit he deserves. And then I got CMC / Jordan Mason, and then I got Jonathan Brooks, hopefully, that should be coming back. And then I got, on my bench, I got Kamani Vidal, who showed up yesterday for his first game with the Chargers, and he, first touch in the game, he went for a 38-yard reception for a touchdown against the Broncos defense, who,
which is pretty stout usually.
Yeah, they've been stout all year, so I was kind of happy about that. But yeah, so and just to back on that stuff, I would say that Washington's the best. Now that we're talking about CMC, Connor, stuff like that, who do you see taking the West? Do you see the Cards? Are you hoping it's I mean, obviously you're probably hoping it's the Cards, but who do you see taking that West? It's a very tight race in the West right now. They're losing games. Each team's losing games you'd think they'd win, and they're winning games you'd think they'd lose.
Right. Yeah. No, with Arizona, I was thinking they would carry their momentum from the San Francisco comeback into yesterday. But
that's what I was thinking too. That's what I was thinking. I had them as what was considered an upset win. I didn't think it was good. I thought it was gonna be close, but it didn't end up being close. So
the thing is, a lot of it was self-inflicted wounds. You got all the way
Hmm.
down in their territory. You had the unfortunate James Conner fumble.
Yeah.
You have the Dortch fumble.
Hmm.
You have, and then of course you can't take away there's like, oh, 10 penalties for over 100 yards.
Oh, I mean
You're not going to win
they
playing
they
undisciplined
went
football.
they the Cards went into that game being the least penalized team in the NFL, and I think and the broadcasters talked about it right before the game started, and I think they jinxed them because I that the line it was just the offense and defensive lines. Like it wasn't anybody, like it wasn't any of the skill players or in the secondary. It was mostly just the lines, and I was like they just kept jumping.
Yeah, but
And
and
it
then of
was
course to make it worse, Marvin Harrison Jr. now has a
no, yeah,
concussion,
he's a
so
concussion. Yeah, I saw that. Which you never want a player getting hurt, whether it's like concussion or what we saw from Hutch or any or even just minor ones like a roll thing. You never want a player getting hurt. Anytime you
that's a
see a
big.
player going, anytime you see a player go into the blue tent, you feel for the player. You hate seeing a blue tent. I hate the blue tent.
But yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was thinking, I mean, still Arizona's probably in a rebuilding year where anything between
That's why I
seven and
thought
nine
I
wins
didn't
is
I
a
didn't I thought it.
huge.
Yeah, I thought it was a rebuilding year anyways. So I was like, I didn't think they were gonna, you know, going into this. I didn't pick them to win the division, at the beginning of the season when I like made like a season parlay or anything. But they've surprised me at times, and then at times I'm like, well, this is where I thought they'd be. I thought they'd be rebuilding this year. Um, but they're
Right.
still
But yeah,
playing.
no,
They're still competing, which is great to see. But they just
it's
they just
San
have they.
Francisco's division, I think.
Mhm. I think now that they have a healthy team, I think it's really their division. I think the Seahawks were doing good, but now Geno, he's kind of doing what he did last year, where Geno was having like a streak of great games, and then he's having a streak of like mediocre games that are like, well, this is
Yeah.
why Geno wasn't a starter for so this many years. Um, which if he keeps playing like that, I would almost, why not give Sam Howell, the backup, a chance to play a game or two, or at least a second half? He was the
Right.
starter for the Commanders last year, and he did amazing for them when he wasn't getting sacked. He was the most sacked quarterback in the league last year because they had the worst line. But he still was like, I think, fourth or fifth in the league in touchdown passes. So like, they just haven't given him the chance. So yeah, I would say it's probably the 49ers, and then for the NFC South, I was very high this year on the Bucks. I thought they were gonna, and I was very high on Baker Mayfield. I said it a lot of my episodes, and when I was talking about sleepers or just about quarterbacks in general, that I was high on Baker, which Baker has played lights out. Made me feel like I was, at least a genius at one position drafting this year. But Baker has played lights out. He's looked the smoothest, the calmest. He has the most swag he's probably had in his entire NFL career. He looks like Oklahoma Baker again.
Right. But yeah, no, the NFC South is actually interesting because you saw how fast the Saints started out and then now they've
Mm-hmm.
fallen apart. But I think this is going to be Atlanta's division. Kirk
You think?
Cousins looks
Kirk Cousins,
really
he's starting to heat
good.
up. He's starting to heat
He
up now. He's starting to look like his old self
before this last game, he threw, had that 509-yard game, and then
against the
this
Bucks.
year
Yeah.
against the Bucks, and then this, week he kind of laid back and showed, be like, okay, I don't need to throw 500 yards for us to win.
Oh yeah. This
Granted, they
this
were
week
playing the Panthers,
yeah,
but
yeah. This week was all like Bijan. Like let's hand it off to Bijan and Tyler Algier. And in a lot of teams, Tyler Algier would probably be a starter or at least a 1A 1B combination. But he's just the backup because they drafted Bijan.
I feel
But
like Algier's like the most underappreciated running back in the
yeah,
league.
I would say the two that I think are the most underappreciated, Algier would be one, and the other one would be Jalen Warren for the Steelers because they're so high
Steelers.
on Najee. But like Warren out of Oklahoma State, like he's done good, these last couple seasons. So this year he's been a little banged up, but like he's produced when he's given the chance. So, and then looking at the AFC side, I don't like saying it, but it's probably going to be the Chiefs because there's just something about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid that they get shit done. So I want it
I
to
was
be the
gonna
Chargers. I
say,
hope it's the Chargers. I hope the Chargers can upset them, but yeah, there's always. Honestly, a few weeks ago, the Chargers we were really banged up. We had three starters on our offensive line out. We had one of our wide receivers out, and we had our best defensive player in the secondary suspended in Derwin James. and we still only lost by a touchdown. So maybe we can have all of our key parts back when they play in Arrowhead in December. Maybe the Chargers can win. I'm trying to go to that game, so I'm hoping I don't get people yelling in my face like they did last year when we lost by like 2 touchdowns. But
So yeah, no, it's definitely, I mean, with all the consistencies, it's still Kansas City's division to lose. I think Harbaugh definitely has them going in the right direction out there in, LA. The Chargers, I mean, I think the Chargers can honestly compete for a wild card if they get things together. They do have some young pieces.
And right now we're at sixth. I mean, we're in the wild card. We're at sixth at the moment. So we just beat the Broncos. We beat the Raiders. We do have a couple divisional wins, which also helps out in that set situation. But when you say Harbaugh, for some reason, every time I hear Harbaugh's name, all I can think of is who's got it better than us. And then everybody says no one. I was like, it's just we're just the Los Angeles, Wolverines at this point. We got their defensive coordinator. We got them. We got Harbaugh. He's bringing all of his old sayings with him. So, but which actually the defensive coordinator Mentor, he had to take over as the head coach for a little bit yesterday because Harbaugh had a heart. Something happened in his heart to where it had some sort of fluttering in one of his atrials, so that he had to take over because he had to go to the blue tent. Nobody knew why, and he had to leave the game for a bit. And he came back towards the end of the first quarter because he had some issues with his heart going on.
Oh, wow.
So that's always scary. You never want
that.
anything you never want anything like that happening. I only found out about it because I was watching the game live, and they were like, "Where did he go?" And then, at halftime, they finally told everybody, and I was like, "Oh crap!" Like, yeah, I mean, we're doing good. If he doesn't need to be there, like, let him leave. But I guess he's the competitive person he is, so he still showed back up. I mean, he lived in an RV outside the stadium all summer. Instead of buying a house, his family stayed in Michigan, and he lived in an RV outside the stadium for an entire summer. So he's that type of guy. Apparently, I watched this thing with Joey Bosa, and he gets in the ice bath with the players. Like, they each get in their own their ice tubs. He gets in it fully clothed with his headset on and everything. Like, he's still in coach mode, but he's like, I'm gonna do what the players do, and he gets in there fully clothed. Yeah, so I got the Chiefs still kind of winning there. AFC South, it's the Texans division to take. The rest of the teams, the NFC South and the AFC East the AFC South and the AFC East look like the two worst divisions of football right now. It's the Bills division to win. It's the Texans division to win. All the other 6 teams look like garbage at the moment to me. Like, the Colts, honestly look better with Flacco than they did with Richardson, but I still think it's the Texans division to take in that conference, or that division, I mean.
100%. Because, I mean, you mentioned everything that, even with how good Houston was last year, they got even better this offseason. You add freaking Diggs and Mixon, so... Mm-hmm.
And Diggs and Mixon yesterday were kind of the two that took over the game. I mean, Collins is obviously on the IR now. They're the leading yardage leader in the league right now. Is on the IR for the next 4 games, and those two, Diggs and Mixon, are kind of the two that took over the game and won it for them yesterday.
Right. And it's just like, it's almost that scenario where you're like, for them, where they went last year, it's almost, AFC title game or bust.
Mm-hmm. And then like I said a minute ago, in the East, Tua's out. There's no one that can take. I mean, they're just a revolving door of quarterbacks in Miami at the moment. Who knows if he'll even be back? He said he's not going to retire. We know that much, but who knows if he'll be back this season? Rodgers, apparently he doesn't have it anymore. I mean, if Devontae goes to the Jets, maybe they'll have a chance, but I mean, Brees looks bad. The O-line looks bad. The only thing that's keeping them in games is their defense, but they just fired the guy that ran the defense, Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the Patriots, they're a rebuilding year. They're finally starting Drake May, which I'm happy about, because May honestly looked pretty good yesterday. In his first start.
For a rookie in his first start, he did really well.
I mean, he threw 3 touchdowns, and I'm pretty sure going into that game, Brissett only had 3 passing touchdowns all the season. So,
I think the Bills are gonna run away with the division because every other team has just too many underlying issues, and the Bills.
Who do you see winning that game tonight between the Bills and the Jets? It starts. I mean, it starts in like an hour. Do you see that the
Honestly,
Bills? I mean, it really comes down to it. The Bills defense has looked pretty bad this year, and the Jets offense have looked pretty bad this year. So it's really going to come down to if the Jets defense can stop the Bills offense.
I was gonna say if Aaron Rodgers can stop turning the ball over, maybe the Jets will have a chance. But he's a shell of his former self. I don't know if he even comes back after this next year, but
Oh, this is. I think he only signed a 2-year contract, so I'm pretty sure this is his last year. So I mean,
but he
I
looks
honestly,
awful.
yeah, he just doesn't look. He doesn't look like his old self from the Packers, and I don't know if that's because he got hurt last year and he's just, or if it's just the him going to the Jets is dysfunctional for everybody. I'm not sure. I know a lot is that, like, we talked about the LeBron James thing kind of running the Lakers. A lot of people are saying, well, it's Rodgers running the Jets. Well, it could be and it couldn't be. I don't know if he's necessarily running the Jets, but I do think they're making a lot of decisions based on what Rodgers wants. Now,
Right.
the Lakers, LeBron James, I feel like is literally running the Lakers. Um, but Rodgers, I think it's just like, oh, Rodgers likes this. Well, we'll give him this. That's why I was like thinking they had to choose somebody, and like, well, let's fire Robert Saleh because obviously it can't be Aaron Rodgers, the Hall of Fame quarterback. He can't be the problem. So let's fire Robert Saleh. But yeah, so I honestly see the Bills winning. I think it's gonna be a closer game than a lot of people think. Because I do think that the Bills defense is pretty bad right now, and they're pretty banged up. So I do think that, and they have the 32nd ranked rush defense. So I'm hoping this is finally the game that Brees shows us, who he is, shows us who he was
Right.
last season, when he was a top 5 running back. Because this year he's honestly looked how Dalvin Cook looked last year.
A back five running back.
Yeah, back 5 running back. But yeah. And then the last one is the which is honestly a pretty hard one is the AFC North with the Browns. Obviously, I'm not even going to touch them. You know, Deshaun Watson, it's all bad there. But the other 3 teams, I mean, the Bengals are good and bad at times. They have Anella Vick and Burrow. We saw from last night. And then the Steelers, they've looked a lot better than I thought they would with Justin Fields. He looks way more comfortable than he ever did with the Bears. And then obviously the Ravens, I knew going into this season they were going to be a hard team for anybody to plan for because you have the best mobile quarterback in the NFL and then the biggest son of a bitch you've ever seen in Derrick Henry running down your throat. So like it's I mean that's why he's the number 1 ranked quarterback in fantasy right now, and he's the number 1 ranked running back in fantasy right now because no team knows how to plan for him.
Well, and what's insane is like you add Derrick Henry, who already has had an amazing career, and then you actually give him Baltimore's offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry hasn't had a great. I would say Derrick Henry hasn't had a great offensive line in about 4 or 5 seasons. When the Titans had a healthy O line before Taylor Lewan tore, both his ACLs and
Yeah,
they lost a
when
few
he
other
was
guys
still
from
an
other teams.
All-Pro.
Yeah, they haven't had anybody since then, and I mean, Derrick's still been putting up numbers, and so now he has arguably, I'd probably say it's the second best offensive line in all of football. I'd still say that the Lions probably have the best, just because they have the depth behind them. The Ravens have a good O
Right.
line, but they don't really have the depth behind their starters. So if somebody gets hurt, they're kind of screwed in that end. But I mean, even if the O line's not anything, Derek can still bring about 3 defensive players on his back with him, for a couple yards at least. He's not going back for negative yards. I'll tell you that much. So
Derrick Henry is almost having Myles Garrett as a running back.
yeah, scary. So yeah, I kind of see them going that way. And then if I was to pick, let's say like a team right now, like we're almost halfway through the season. If I was to pick 2 teams from one from each conference to go to the Super Bowl, it'd probably be I'm gonna pick the Chiefs because they'll somehow find a freaking way. And then in the NFC, I want to say the Lions, but I'm really hoping, like I said, my dark horse pick. I'm really hoping the Bucks somehow make it, and the Bucks, can do it. I would love to see the Bucks win one and not have it be under Tom Brady's name this time.
Right.
So I'd like to see them make it, but I really see the Lions this possibly being the Lions year. You know, they came up short last year, and I'm hoping they can do it again. Because you know, Lions are one of those teams where I think everyone in America would root for. It's not like, you know, not everyone in America is going to root for the Chiefs. Not everyone in America is going to root for the 49ers. Not everyone in America is going to root for this team or this team. I'm pretty sure everyone in America, besides wherever the other team came from, would be rooting for the Lions.
Right, and then you have the whole aspect of the team's going to be fired up and wanting to win for Hutch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah.
But no, I see, in that division, I definitely see Baltimore carrying the torch because we don't know how Cincy's if Cincy can get on a roll, there's a chance that they could, be fighting for the division towards the end. But right now, I just feel like
they were a couple weeks ago. I thought they were a couple weeks ago when they were amazing against the Ravens, and then they played last night against the Giants, and they looked like, it looks like they were they were hungover from playing the Ravens the week before.
Right. But yeah, my Super Bowl pick would probably be Lions and Baltimore.
Lions, Baltimore. That's a good pick too. That's a good pick too. It'd be cool. It would be cool. Because I'm being a Chargers fan and all. If somehow Kansas City could get upset and the Chargers could make it all the way to AFC Championship and we could have another Harbaugh versus Harbaugh Bowl, I wouldn't mind that.
That'd be cool.
Because the Chargers have a good O-line too. I wouldn't mind it'd really be a run game versus run game because both our pass games are kind of mediocre. So it'd just be, old style, run it down their mouth, football in the trenches. But yeah, I could see the Ravens making it. Ravens or Steelers probably. I'm not Steelers. What did I say? Steelers, Ravens or Chiefs. Making it, and then in the other one it'd be probably the Lions. Even though I kind of hope it'd be the Bucks. But we're almost halfway through the season. I thought it'd be fun to play a few activities, little games with you. So I have one called Cooking or Cooked. So you can you could say a player's cooked. You can say they're cooking. Really, it's like, do you think they're awful, or do you think they're playing amazing? You can say they're preheating, simmering, well done, cold, really anything tied to cooking. One of my friends brought this idea up to me, and I was like, I'll bring it up in my podcast. So an example I have is Jaden Daniels is cooking. Well, Deshaun Watson, I'd say he's not even cooked. He's burnt. He's more burnt.
I was gonna say
he's crispy. I wouldn't, if he was a steak, I would not be touching him. I'd be feeding that to my dog. That is a wasted piece of steak. So I'll say a player, and then you, or a team or a group, and then I'll kind of see if you want to give me one or what your thoughts are on that one. So the first one I have is Jane Daniels and Lamar Jackson, mobile quarterbacks in general, but especially Jane Daniels and Lamar Jackson. They are cooking right now. They are on fire. I would say the reason those two teams are winning is not just because of their ability to pass, which Jane Daniels has looked great in that offense, but because of their ability to run. They're designing runs, especially for those guys, but those guys are also, just amazing scramblers, so that when there's nobody to pass it to and it's not a design run, they can just find an opening and make something out of it. Is there anybody that you could think of that you'd say is cooking right now?
Honestly, I would add, especially right now, especially the past couple weeks, given the way they played, I would put Kirk Cousins and Caleb Williams in the cooking category.
Okay.
Because, we see how comfortable Kirk Cousins is now getting with the offense in Atlanta. Kyle Pitts is actually being utilized. Bijan's he's finally being properly. Utilized. Fantasy owners can rejoice. And also, we've seen how Caleb Williams started, and the past couple weeks, he's looked a lot more comfortable. He has more time to get the ball out. He's actually utilizing his three big play receivers. He looks comfortable, and you can't argue when the guy is throwing 4 touchdowns yesterday.
Oh yeah. Two to Komet, two to Allen. He looked good. He looked great. With that, I also just talking about we were talking about divisions in general. I put after Lamar Jackson and Jay Daniels, I put also in the cooking category on here. I put the entire NFC North, and we talked about that. The entire NFC North, talking about Caleb Williams, talking about Kirk Cousins' old stomping ground in the Vikings. Every team looks like a playoff team. Every team. And like we said, one of them possibly won't make it. Two of them might not even make it if something happens, but like they all look like they could make it to the playoffs and compete.
For sure.
And then just talking about cooked, I have the AFC South, the AFC East, Doug Peterson, and the Dallas Cowboys. That is what's in my cooked playlist, my cooked list. So with that, like, I said the AFC South besides Houston, it just looks awful. But the AFC East besides the Bills, it just looks awful. With that, Doug Peterson and Mike McCarthy, talking about the Cowboys next, few weeks, they keep losing, they're gone. I don't see them making it much longer. Especially Mike McCarthy, and actually both of them, because, they have Khan for Peterson, who's like a billionaire known around the world, and they have Jerry Jones, who's a billionaire known for, being the only person to own the team in its entirety, and the Cowboys. And I mean, like I said earlier, Dak literally shit his pants in Jerry World yesterday against a real playoff team in the Detroit Lions. So I would say those are my teams or players or coaches or whatever that are in my cooked category.
Honestly, I mean, we already threw Deshaun Watson into the burnt toast, burnt
Oh yeah,
bacon,
I got him later. I got him in the hella burnt. He's in my burnt.
So,
don't even touch. He has no way of coming back. Like at least the other guys, they're cooked, but like they have a chance. Like you can add some seasonings, maybe like they can still be flavorful. There's nothing saving no burnt Deshaun Watson. You can't save that.
He's basically freaking charcoal powder. It's
well,
so
and
bad.
I know with that, the entire Browns organization's burnt, in my opinion. Like you paid that guy millions of dollars. He swindled you all. He's holding him at ransom. He's like, I don't even want to play for you guys. He walked off the field last week. He's like, I don't even want to play for you guys anymore. You still got to pay me. It's all guaranteed.
And the coach is still like, oh yeah, he's still our guy. Like what?
He has more. I read this last week. He has more. It's since been with him. I'm not even talking about when he was with the Texans, but he has more cases. With his sexual assault stuff, that he had all that stuff going on. He has more of them that have been thrown at him, and I don't know the right word to say it, but like finished. Like they've done the case, they finished it through all that stuff. He's had more of that done during his time with the Browns than he has thrown in touchdowns with his time with the Browns. He has more cases against him than touchdowns.
That's insane. But no, and then to add to the incredibly burnt category, I would say any Raiders quarterback, it doesn't matter if it's Minshew or O'Connell, the whole Raiders offense dysfunctional. Outside of Bowers, they might as well just restart.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think if Devontae Adams has talked about, I guess, possibly coming back, because I guess he's a real big O'Connell believer, which, I mean, he did have a pretty good season with O'Connell last year. He was O'Connell's number one target, which, why wouldn't you pepper, Devontae Adams if you're a rookie?
Why would you make him mad by getting away from his guy?
Yeah, so there's a possibility with him coming back, but like I mean, Minshew looked good last year with the Colts. Minshew looks bad this year with the Raiders, and I think part of it is just how it's being ran. The offensive coordinator, do you know who the offensive coordinator for the Raiders is?
Who?
I got no friggin' idea. I can name most of the offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators. Like, I can't tell you who I can't tell you who the Raiders offensive coordinator is. I can't. And there's no, I don't know, there's just nothing going on that like makes me happy with that offense. The only person I would even want on that team, like you said, is Bowers, because it's running through him, and then Devontae Adams if he possibly comes back, because it is Devontae Adams.
Right.
But I would be happier being an Adams owner if he left. Like I own Adams in one league. I'd be happier with him on a different team, even if it is the Jets with how dysfunctional they've been. At least I know he'll produce with Rodgers.
Yeah, I was gonna say having him sitting on my bench too is just like, what the hell? And then another.
I had him sit on my bench for 2 weeks, and I'm like, come on, man.
And then of course anything that runs through the Tennessee offense, burnt toast. You cannot.
I have the Titans wide receivers on my list for being burnt as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Here, I'll just read through my burnt list, because I'll go to the bottom and read it. I had Deshaun Watson, burnt. We talked about that. Browns organization, burnt. The Dolphins without Tua, burnt. And then the Titans wide receivers, burnt. And then I said my defensive player of the year vote. So when I made my, who I picked in one of my first early episodes, I picked Aiden Hutchinson. So my defensive player of the year vote, burnt. So
it's bad when it's bad when your offense is so bad. One of your wide receivers is complaining about targets.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is, like, Calvin Ridley, I mean, he was the leader for them. He was the leader for the Jags last year. DeAndre Hopkins, he showed that he was, he wasn't who he was with the Texans or the Cards anymore, but he still, showed he could do stuff. It's really Levis. Levis looks like garbage. Each week, I am seeing a different picture come out that people are making memes about with Will Levis. Like, I don't know if you've seen them, but each and every week, there's a new picture being taken from Will Levis, and from each game that people are making memes about on social media.
Shouldn't have done that mayonnaise ad.
Yeah, you should. Mayonnaise cologne. But yeah, and then I have my warming up my warming up list. I have the tight end university. I put the tight end university because it's just a multitude of tight ends. And it's whether it's either due to injuries or maybe it's just, they're getting right with the quarterbacks. But Kels is finally producing now that Rice is gone. McBride is finally producing now that he's healthy, and will probably even be producing more now that Harrison is hurt.
Yeah.
And then Andrews finally showed up yesterday. Laporta, he's finally showing up. Ingram finally got back from injury. Komet, as you said, and we said, went off for 2 touchdowns yesterday. Tucker Kraft for the Packers has been going off, and then besides CeeDee Lamb, the only one that the Cowboys have been throwing to is Jake Ferguson. So, I mean, they're all finally doing something. Because I think before the last couple weeks, the only 2 tight ends people could comfortably start was George Kittle and Brock Bowers. Everyone else, it was like, why the hell did I draft this person within rounds 3, 4, or 5? So, I think those guys are finally producing to the point. And then my other ones that I have warming up or even preheating are rookie running backs: Bucky Irving, Jalen Wright, Kamani Vidal, Trey Benson, Tyrone Tracy, and Braylon Allen. So for those who don't know, Bucky Irving, he's finally taking over a little bit from Rachaad White in Tampa Bay, and he's doing amazing. Jalen Wright's finally getting a chance now with Devon Achane with a concussion. Kamani Vidal showed up yesterday with Edwards hurt. Trey Benson's looked like he's finally getting some touches behind Connor, which I know he was like one of the highest rated going into the draft. And then Tyrone Tracy, I mean, he looked way better than Devil Singletary has looked as a Giant when he played last night. And then Braylon Allen, he's looked better than Breece Hall's looked this year. So I mean, I guess really just rookie running backs. No one expected this to be a high rookie running back draft. It was all about the wide receivers in this draft. Right. And the running backs. And I mean, and some of those receivers, obviously like Neighbors, he's doing amazing. Roma Doze's hit or miss because, Caleb Williams has other people to throw to. And Marvin Harrison's been doing good. But people didn't go into this draft, saying like, oh, this is a high class of running backs. But really it's the running backs that are kind of going under the table, nobody's seeing, that are just producing week in and week out.
Well, that's just like we've seen the trend like the last 5+ years. Like, you don't exactly have to have the marquee franchise name to get quality at your running back position. You can draft guys, in the 4th, 5th round that can produce for your football team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's kind of what like screwed all the guys out of their contracts last year with all the teams were saying. It's like, well, we're all getting banged up. You're all, we saw what happened with Le'Veon Bell. We saw what happened with Todd Gurley. All these guys that we used to just run the ball down their throats, and they're all getting banged up and hurt, and they're winning tons of money. But now it's like, well, Eckler, you can leave, and Saquon, you can leave, and all the teams are just, they were over this last year or two, they've been just letting all the running backs leave. And that's why these new guys are just slowly taking over. Do you have any other players that you kind of want to, that comes to mind that you want to add to a certain list, or would you want to move on to what I call the milk carton players, which are players that are MIA?
I was going to say, let's do the MIA.
Okay. So for those who don't know, I started this thing. It's called Milk Carton Players. They are players that are MIA, players that we've been looking for all season and are officially declared missing. A few weeks ago, we tried to record Frankie and I, and he ended up getting sick, and then I ended up getting COVID. So it's been a few weeks that I had a few guys on this list, but I've had to take them off since then. But it's kind of an example is like a few weeks ago, I had Mark Andrews on this list. Well, he finally showed up yesterday. I kind of could still keep him on this list because it was only one game. I had D Swift on this list because DeAndre Swift was AWOL. And then I had Kyle Pitts on this list and Garrett Wilson. Well, they're finally all starting to kind of show up, so I kind of take them off the list. But these are all players that we have no idea where the hell they're at, and they belong on the side of a milk carton. So my list of players, I'm going to start with quarterbacks. I have Justin Herbert. And I love Herbert, being a Chargers fan, but we just haven't used him. We went into this season and Harbaugh was super, super, super high on Herbert. The reason he wanted to go to the Chargers, he said, was because Justin Herbert was our quarterback. Well, we haven't utilized him. He's a bottom 20 quarterback at the moment. He's throwing the ball 10 to 11 times a game, and he's just not showing to be what should be a centerpiece of your team if that's the reason you went to that team. So, and then besides them, I also have Trevor Lawrence and then Dak Prescott. Trevor Lawrence is like crap, like we said, and then Dak Prescott's looked like crap. But the one that's really, irked me, and it's probably because I'm a Chargers fan, but it's also because he hasn't done anything wrong. He's looked good, and they're winning games. Is that Herbert? Herbert has been missing, but the Chargers are looking good, so I don't see it changing. I see them, him still being a bottom 20 quarterback, and I still see the Chargers they're going to keep running the ball down people's throats until it doesn't work anymore. Do you have any quarterbacks that you'd consider on the milk carton MIA list?
I mean, you already hit the nail on the head with two of my biggest ones. I would put Dak and Lawrence up there too, because they are definitely not, especially with the,
with being a number one overall pick, you'd expect Lawrence to produce a little better than he's doing. With Dak getting paid as much money as he is, you'd expect him to be doing a little better than he's doing.
Well, yeah, and considering Lawrence is like what was the highest touted quarterback prospect ever at one point, and like he looks probably below average.
Oh yeah, he doesn't look confident in the offense. It looks like there's some sort of it almost reminds me of how Doug Peterson was with Carson Wentz towards the end of their tenure. Like they didn't look like they were on the same page. It didn't look like they agreed with each other. And then Peterson ended up getting fired. And then, a few seasons later, Wentz is gone now too, which I don't see Trevor Lawrence necessarily leaving, but I do see Peterson getting fired. You're not gonna get let go of Trevor Lawrence when they still believe in him.
I was gonna say, you're gonna find one more guy to make it work, and then if you still can't get anything out of him, then you move on.
Yeah, because really the whole Urban Meyer saga that one season, like that's all like a scratch. Like I don't even count that as I counted that whole season. I counted Trevor Lawrence's second season as his rookie season, because that whole Urban Meyer like BS, like I didn't count any of that. Running backs I have on this list of Breece Hall. I'm hoping he finally shows up tonight. If he cannot show up tonight, then I'm kind of losing faith in him. I don't have him in any of my leagues this year. But like I've kind of lost faith in him at this point if he doesn't show up tonight, because he, like I said, he's playing the 32nd ranked rush defense, and he only has one game above 15 fantasy points. I'm just talking, and then just talking about in NFL, in general, if you're not a fantasy person, he only has one productive game this season, is what I'm trying to say. And then other than that, I have Travis Etienne, who finished last season as the fantasy running back at the third, like he was the third ranked fantasy back in the entire league, and this year he's been banged up a couple games, but he's also fumbled a bunch. He's just not looking explosive anymore. He's kind of like his old Clemson buddy, like him and Trevor Lawrence they're just both not doing very well. The whole offense looks dysfunctional.
Yeah. To my list, I would go with, Tyjae Spears. There was so much hype with him coming into the season, but I mean, as we talked about earlier, nothing is really running through that Tennessee offense. Not sure if it's, coordination or if it's just Will Levis altogether, but just there's nobody outside of Hopkins that consistently does anything in that offense. And then, of course, I hate to throw Vegas under the bus again, but their running back situation is absolutely dreadful.
Oh yeah, they went into the season. Everybody, like a lot of people were high on Zamir White with how he played, and then like I honestly wasn't super high on him, but I still thought like, he was going to do better than he did. I did like Alexander Mattison going into the season, because I was like, well, he didn't do good for the Vikes the year before, but he still showed that he can put up respectable numbers in a sense. So I thought he would have a better chance if there was any team in the league where a backup could overtake the starter that was one of the few teams where I thought, well, I could see Madison possibly taking over for Zamir, but he still hasn't. I mean, even Madison, he's still not producing a ton just because of how, like we said, dysfunctional that offense is as well.
Right.
And then going on to wide receivers, I have Brandon Ayuk and Devontae Adams. Obviously, with Brandon Ayuk, it's been, this whole saga over they had during the offseason where he's like, I'm sitting out, I'm not going to get paid, I'm not going to do it. And then he finally got paid. And then now he's throwing temper tantrums where he has to wear, because he wants to wear red pants and Shanahan wants him to wear black pants. He's throwing a temper tantrum during practice. I don't know if you've seen that video. But he's just not producing. Like, if you're gonna be a guy that's gonna throw temper tantrums, if you're gonna be a guy that's like all about like this showboating, like, I'm a big name guy and I'm gonna act like it, then you need to produce to show that. Like, Terrell Owens, Chad Ochocinco, guys like that, where it's like, well, they put up with their BS because of how they produced, and right now Brandon Ayuk's just not producing like that. He's not. And then other than that, I have Devontae Adams, who he's been AWOL for a few weeks, but even when he was playing, like, he only put up one game this season that's been respectable. And then now he's, missing because he has a hamstring injury. But then we also don't know how, real that hamstring injury is, because they're also saying, well, he's just not wanting to play because he doesn't want to play for them anymore. And then, anybody else you have on wide receivers that you'd consider, on that list?
A guy I feel like, and I mean, this is speaking from a Cardinals fan personally, a guy who actually two guys I thought were going to be a lot more productive this year, seeing as Kyler is going in healthy, is Dortch and Wilson, but they've kind of both been, I mean, other than Wilson
I thought
yesterday.
Wilson, yeah, Dortch, I heard a lot of hype on him preseason, and then he hasn't really, showed up to that extent. But Michael Wilson, I have him in one of my dynasty leagues, and he's finally, doing what he did for a few games last season, to where, like, I think he's finally, possibly taking on that, like, Christian Kirk role that
Right.
that Christian had a few years ago when he was with Kyler.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw a little more of that yesterday, but he's been kind of quiet beforehand. But I mean, a lot of that had to go with, Harrison going down. But our offense should hopefully open up a lot more now that McBride's healthy. And then this next week, we'll be getting Zay Jones for the first time.
Oh yeah, I forgot you guys will be getting Zay Jones, and then you're also getting your first round pick, the defensive end, I think. Trying to think of his
Robinson,
name.
yeah.
Yeah, you're getting him back too. So, and then the last one I have is for the tight end position. I only have one person because, like I said, the other guys are slowly, somewhat starting to show up. The only person that I would say that hasn't showed up at all, who is hyped a ton this season, just because he was the only, really known target on his team, is Dalton Kincaid for the Bills. The Bills are still producing; they're still doing great. But Dalton Kincaid hasn't done anything this season, and he's not really being utilized like everyone thought he would be going into this season.
100%. I thought I thought Allen would be using him as a security blanket given his new wide receiver set, but
He's been
he's
using
been,
Khalil Shakur. Khalil Shakur has been
yeah,
the new security blanket, so it's almost like Kincaid's just being overlooked altogether. He's really only being used, it seems like, as a blocker. I mean, he might be used tonight because Shakur is still a little banged up from last week, but he's really only being used as a blocker for James Cook. That's all I've really seen him being utilized as.
right. But yeah, and then another guy I might even consider would be, but I mean, it's mainly just because I figured he would have more of a volume,
Mm-hmm.
especially with Nico Collins being out. I would go with Dalton Schultz being a little bit of a disappointment, not a major one, but
Well, I mean, yeah, he had a pretty good I mean, I had him in fantasy last year. He was pretty productive last year, and he hasn't really done much this year. I guess like I hadn't thought about him just because of with all the other key players they have on that team. But yeah, he hasn't really done much. That's a good one too. And then so the last thing I have, is just looking towards week 7. I know we're running a little short on time, so I won't go through like the slate of anything, but I'll at least look at the Chargers and Cardinals game because my team's playing your team
yeah.
next week. So how do you see all that shaping up? I know going into the game, our offense is the Chargers we're all downhill, we're running the ball. We don't have the most efficient offense per se, but quietly we have a top 5 defense. For the first time in years, Chargers haven't had a top 10 defense in a long time, and now we are considered a top 5 defense. So I'm happy about it. We have a great run defense, and our corners are actually for the first time, stopping the pass. So how do you see the Cards and the Chargers game going next week?
Honestly, I think if Arizona starts off well, I think it's a game that we definitely can win, but also given last night, we need to focus on ball security and discipline,
Mm-hmm.
especially up front. You're not going to win turning the ball over 3 times, especially in, crucial positions. And also if you're backing your guy up before you even get started, those are drive killers, and we need to get back to the fundamentals. I think if we can keep Kyler Murray upright, not to where he's
Mm-hmm.
running for his life, we have a
Yeah,
decent chance. But it also,
you don't want Khalil Mack running at you with
no,
nobody blocking him.
no, because if he's coming free, Kyler's going to be turfed all day. Same with Bosa.
Yeah, but Bosa, I'd say Bosa, but Bosa, he'll be in, and then the next play he'll somehow have turf toe, and he'll be out for 2 weeks. So, but Khalil Mack will be there. He'll be there, and then you always have the every team, because the way they've been utilizing him this year. I know he's our safety, but they've been really blitzing with Derwin James a lot this year. He's a smaller dude, but I mean, I remember a couple of years ago he picked up and got flagged, but he suplexed Travis Kelce. So he's got some strength to him. So yeah, I really see that it's gonna be a closer game than I think the Chargers have had to deal with recently. Because we either got, I guess we had a close game with the Chiefs, but other than that, all the games have kind of been blowouts for the Chargers so far. And I see this kind of being a closer game to where it's going to be now that Harrison's out. I think the real target for the I think he's going to use McBride kind of as a security blanket, but I really think it's going to be a run game, and I'm hoping that it's more competitive to where, like you said, that there's some ball security on the card side. But I really think it's going to be a running through the trenches, running on the outside, and just kind of seeing which group of running backs, whether the Cards just go with Connor like they did a couple weeks ago, or they do 3 running backs like they did this week. And then the Chargers, they're going to just do Dobbins, or are they going to do Dobbins and Vidal, just see which group produces better than the other, because I think that's going to be what really wins the game.
Right. And I just, Arizona's defense is so young. There's so many, incomplete pieces, but also everybody on that defense is, still, learning how to play together. The only thing defensively that I'm hoping is Bunting looks at the tape from this last week.
I read a lot of your stuff. Yeah, I was looking at your guys' social media this weekend
He got
during the games.
absolutely torched.
You guys were not happy with Bunting. He has, honestly, he looked good when he was with the Bucks, but he didn't look good last year with the Titans, and he hasn't really looked this good this year with the Cards either so far.
Because all he had to do was stay with the ball, and there's no touchdown. But he kind of lost track, went the other way, and then the guy's because Bunting thought he was going out of bounds, the guy's like, oop, I can save this touchdown.
All right, so if you had to pick a score, we'll just leave it at this before we end. If you had to pick a score, what do you see the score ending as for the Chargers and Cardinals game next week?
21-17.
Who? 21-17 who?
Cardinals, hopefully, but I could see it going either way, to be honest, really.
See, mine's actually close. I have it written down that I have it going 20-17 Chargers. So you have 21-17, I have 20-17. So pretty close in our guesses, and so we'll just have to kind of wait and see how it goes next week. And maybe we'll be messaging each other anxiously during the game or something. Who knows?
It'll just be nice being able to watch a Sunday slate of games and not having to be pissed off.
Yep. Yeah, I guess that's true, because we want to play till Monday. So that's how I was last week when we were on our bye week. I was watching all the games, and I was like, oh, why am I not worried today?
Yeah.
Oh, it's oh yeah, it's our freaking bye week, which I hate having that early of a bye week, but hey, it is what it is. So if you ever have any fantasy questions or need some advice, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll try to answer your questions in the mailbag section of my episodes. My email is flagrantfantasy, BELLER @gmail.com. flagrantfantasybeller @gmail.com.